This duo stepping up is huge for Oklahoma.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase over at Game Time. I'm John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners. And again, thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen. Going to take a little bit of a stock report of where Oklahoma stands at certain positions or guys that are stepping up right now as Oklahoma heads into this week with Tennessee. And first off the top, man, I think we're not talking quite enough about how good Kani Walker and Des Malone were on Saturday against Tulane. This group right here, okay, not guys that were expected to be the starters for the Oklahoma Sooners at cornerback. You might say, okay, they were going to be rotational players. They might, play some significant snaps for you, but we expected Gentry Williams, Woody Washington to start on the outside at cornerback for the Oklahoma Sooners, and that really hasn't materialized through 3 games. Gentry Williams battling the shoulder injury that he battled all of last year. Woody Washington has been moved around a lot, playing some slot cornerback, playing some cheetah, playing some on the outside as well, but Oklahoma's found a really, really nice pairing in Kani Walker and Des Malone, 2 guys that were transfer portal pickups. Remember, Kani Walker came over from Louisville a couple off seasons ago. Des Malone came over from San Diego State this past off season, and they were really, really effective against Tulane. Listen to the stat line against the Green Wave. The 2 combined to be targeted 11 times. 11 times. That's quite a bit, actually. But they only allowed 2 receptions on 11 targets for 14 yards. One of those catches was a negative 2-yard reception. That's awesome. That is really, really good. And I know you're going to say it's just Tulane, or detractors out there will say it's just Tulane. But remember, this was a passing offense that threw for over 300 yards against Kansas State. This was a passing offense that was really, really effective. Mario Williams had been really, really effective for the Green Wave the first few games of the season. So again, you only have to go by what you've seen. And what we saw was Kani Walker and Des Malone put the clamps on Tulane. And that's huge, man. That is absolutely huge. We've talked about the size before. We've talked about how that length can be impactful. Well, they both had 2 pass breakups in the game. That's really great. I mean, the one by Kani Walker helped lead to an interception. Des Malone had a really, really nice pass breakup on a deep ball down the sideline where he's, falling away and he tips the ball as it's, possibly and probably going to land in the wide receiver's arms. Just really, really important for those 2 to continue to play well, to continue to step up and take advantage of the snaps that they're given. They led the cornerback room in snaps. Even though Woody Washington still did play a lot, he got moved around. I mean, you saw it was Des Malone and Kani Walker as your primary cornerback group on the outside. And I think that's going to be big for them. Now, listen, you're going to face bigger challenges even this week against Tennessee, but that length in zone coverage, that's going to create more opportunities to create turnovers, because as we saw with Kani Walker, man, the dude was attacking the football and getting his hand on it. And that helps lead to interceptions. That helps lead to big plays. And I think we'll see more from those two guys. And let's not understate it. On a defense that has had really, really good front 7 play, the cornerback group has probably been the biggest question mark with the defense, because you like your safety group a lot. You like your linebackers. The defensive line has played really, really well. Now we're starting to see the cornerback group start to step up and say, hey, listen, we're playing really good football too. So that's really exciting. I think that's really exciting revelation at this point. Some other areas that Oklahoma's gotten some improved play, or guys that had really, really standout performances against Tulane. Let's talk Kobie McKinzie. He was second on the linebacker depth chart in snaps played. You started to see his stock slowly rising in the linebacker hierarchy. They really still like Kip Lewis a lot, but maybe it was just the matchup with a guy like Mekhi Hughes, who runs the ball really, really well. You want to continue to focus your efforts in stopping the run so that you can force teams into longer down and distances, 2nd and longs, 3rd and longs, And maybe Kobie McKinzie gives you a little bit more of that. Now, this week against Tennessee, we're going to be playing a lot more speed, a lot more up tempo, and the quarterback run game is going to be a significant part of the offensive game plan for Josh Heupel and the Vols. Maybe you see a little bit more Kip Lewis in this one. So we'll continue to kind of see how Oklahoma deploys their linebackers. But we said in the offseason that because of the linebacker depth, Oklahoma could be matchup dependent with how they deploy these guys. So this past week against Tulane, we saw a lot more Kobie McKinzie. We've seen more Kip Lewis at different times. We've gotten to see some more Jaren Kanak. So Lewis Carter had some good run against the Houston Cougars. So it's a linebacker group that's continuing to evolve. Obviously, Danny Stutzman is like the top of the heap. He's the cream of the crop, right? But everybody else underneath that, we're going to see those snaps differentiate from game to game. But Kobie McKinzie, I thought, played a really good game. He was tied for second on the team in Pro Football Focus's stops, a metric that they use to measure kind of defensive efficiency. So if the offense gets stopped short of the necessary yardage to determine whether a play was successful or not, the player that made the stop gets what's called a stop. So Kobie McKinzie was second on the team, or tied for second on the team in stops. Obviously, we got to talk about the edge group led by R. Mason Thomas and his 3 sacks, 5 total pressures from him. Ethan Downs had 4 total pressures, according to Pro Football Focus. Adepoju Adebaware had 1, and so did Caden Woolard. That's a group that's continuing to get better, right? We've needed a pass rush to be consistent from this team. And at times they were really, really good last year, but at times it was non-existent. Well, they were good against Tulane, 11 total pressures from the edge group. Again, obviously, R. Mason Thomas had the big performance, but he was getting pressure throughout the game. Darian Mensah just did a really good job getting rid of the football, whether it was a throwaway or a short passing completion. He helped neutralize Oklahoma's pass rush. But you saw, there were different times on the highlights or in the game where the broadcast would highlight R. Mason Thomas creating pressure, but Mensah being able to step away from it. Well, what we saw at the end of the game was R. Mason Thomas was getting pressure, but getting home because they were having to get some deeper pass concepts down the field. And, Mensah just didn't have as much time. So that stock is rising, and you're going to need that more and more this week against Tennessee, especially if you're able to get Tennessee into some long down and distances. We'll talk about the biggest threat that Oklahoma faces a little bit later in the show, but getting a consistent pass rush against Nico while also having to be aware of the scramble game and the QB run game is going to be important. So again, tough matchup on paper for the Oklahoma Sooners offense, tough matchup on film for Oklahoma's defense against Tennessee. If they can continue to play at a high level up front along the defensive line, that's going to do wonders for what Oklahoma can do this weekend against the Vols. Also stock up Oklahoma's health. It's getting better. It's been a bit of a mash unit the first few weeks of the season back into training camp, but Jackson Arnold expects Nick Anderson to be back this week. So we're expecting Nick Anderson to be back this week. He warmed up, went through all the pregame stuff with Oklahoma, was full in uniform last Saturday against Tulane, but they didn't play him. Also, you're expecting Branson Hickman back. We love Josh Bates on this show. We're day oneers with Josh Bates, but there are things that he still needs to improve to be able to play at a high level for the Oklahoma Sooners at center. Branson Hickman coming back, even though he's been out of the lineup for the last few weeks, his experience is going to help improve communication up front. You're not going to have to rely so much on providing double teams to the center. You'll still provide some help to the center in certain situations, certain protections, but maybe you don't have to do it as much. And again, it's a guy that's seen a lot of college football and he's played really good ball. Remember, Dominic Williams talked about how much he hated playing against Branson Hickman when the two were at TCU and SMU. So getting him back to help maybe provide a little bit more cohesion, better communication up front along the offensive line is also going to benefit Jackson Arnold as well, where he can maybe have a little bit more trust in what the protection is going to be for a given play. So that's huge. Troy Everett's also been rotating into the mix in practice. Jake Taylor as well. Maybe don't expect those guys to be back this week, but it also wouldn't surprise to see them. We'll get our first official injury report from the SEC on Wednesday, and then we'll be able to discuss what that means for Oklahoma on Thursday's episode. But the fact that we're getting guys healthier right now as we're heading into SEC play is going to be huge. Now, if Nick Anderson can come back and be Nick Anderson this first week that he's on the field, that could potentially open a lot of things up for Oklahoma's offense. But man, too many people are sleeping on Oklahoma. I know it's the SEC. I know it's Tennessee. It's a really, really good Tennessee team. But why are we sleeping so much on Oklahoma? Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Well, one area that maybe isn't sleeping so much on Oklahoma, and that's the line. Started off at 7.5, favoring the Tennessee Volunteers, and now it's down to 6.5. So you might be seeing a little bit more action going in on the Oklahoma Sooners right now, or on the Tennessee Volunteers. So this is it's going to be fascinating to see how this one ends up by game time. But really, it's a tough matchup to pick, and it's a tough matchup to watch because neither one of these teams has played anybody of significance aside from Tennessee playing NC State. But you look at the SP Plus rankings, and NC State's ranked lower than Houston right now in ESPN SP Plus. Just fascinating. Hey, you've heard us talk about FanDuel a lot. It's America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little different for you now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. If you're looking for the best last-minute deals on tickets in your area, you got to go to Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. They have a feature that allows you to see the all-in pricing over at Game Time. No surprise fees at checkout, and you have to turn on the feature to see it, but you're not going to be guessing, okay, am I seeing a bunch of taxes? Am I seeing a bunch of fees from the venue, from the ticketing agent? No, you get to see it all up front so you know exactly what you're going to be seeing. They got the lowest price guarantee, and Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you get a lower price somewhere else. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing agency. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create an account and you redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. And again, thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. We hope you're having a great Wednesday out there in Sooner Nation. It's another day to sit there and find reasons to be optimistic about what Oklahoma is going to be doing this weekend against Tennessee. And it's easy, I think, to be not so confident in what you're going to get out of Oklahoma this game. I understand. We haven't seen the offense play to its fullest potential. We haven't seen a consistent passing attack from Jackson Arnold and the wide receivers. We haven't seen a dominant offensive line performance. We haven't seen a dominant run game. So I totally understand why you might not be optimistic about Oklahoma's chances against the Volunteers. Totally reasonable. It totally is. At the same time, I think this is an Oklahoma offense that's trending in the right direction. I think we started to see a little bit more signs of life from the running game last week. Was it good? No. It was average, probably. But with the way that Jackson Arnold's running the football, I think that does change some things for the Oklahoma Sooners. You know, maybe they didn't want to get into that bag this early in the season, but it's an important part of the offense because his run ability is so good that you have to make it a part of your every week game plan. Now, they're not going to try and expose him too much with a lot of quarterback power and quarterback draw, but they will use it, and they've been really effective when they've used it. The read option game, I think, is going to be key to unlocking Oklahoma's run game potential, because as teams have to focus more on Jackson Arnold at the mesh point, that point where Jackson Arnold's got the ball tucked into the running back's belly, and he's having to decide, okay, do I give it to him or do I keep it and run? Defenses are going to have to pay more attention to Jackson Arnold. They can't just hone in on the running back and sell out to stop that run, because we saw with Tulane, when they did that, Jackson Arnold was off, man, and there was nobody in sight. He had two really, really good runs out of the read option concept. And so I imagine they continue to keep that as a part of the game plan. again, it's going to be a much more athletic and much more active Tennessee defensive front and linebacker core. But still, the reason it's so effective is because of the misdirection. And if they can get Tennessee biting and flowing to the running backs, that's going to open some things up. But the big reason why you shouldn't necessarily sleep on the Oklahoma Sooners, it's because of the defense. I get Tennessee's offense is really stinking good. And I get that they've been putting up electric numbers through the first 3 weeks of the season, but they hadn't played nobody. NC State, again, I mentioned it in the read just a second ago, but NC State is currently ranked lower in the SP Plus rankings than Houston. Let that sink in for a second. That was a ranked NC State team, and Tennessee gets credit for it. They're going to get credit for the ranked win, the top 25 win, but it's not a good NC State team. It's not a team that you look at and you're like, yeah, they should be ranked. Remember, Florida State was once ranked. They were ranked in the top 10. And now we see where they are. So those preseason rankings don't mean a whole lot right now. And the SP Plus is evolving and it's adjusting for the analytics. Well, Houston is considered a better team in the SP Plus rankings than NC State. So you got that. I think that where this game is going to be won and lost is going to be on Oklahoma's ability to slow down the run game. And I'm going to talk in greater detail about that next. And Oklahoma's been really, really good against the run. This is a defense that I think prides itself on stopping the run. You've got a front seven with a defensive tackle rotation where all four guys, Dominic Williams, Dejon Terry, Jaden Jackson, Grayson Halton, they can all stop the run. You've got an Ethan Downs at defensive end that can stop the run really well. R. Mason Thomas is starting to come into his own before our very eyes. And then your linebacker crew is just really good at getting downhill and getting into the backfield. They read it well and they see it well and they attack. So I like where Oklahoma's defense is at. And we talked about in the first segment how the cornerback group is really stepping up with Kani Walker and Des Malone and how that reality is going to make things a lot better for your pass rush. That if you're getting sticky coverage like they provided against Tulane, then your pass rush is going to have a better opportunity to get home. So the reason why I stay confident, stay optimistic about where Oklahoma's at and Oklahoma's chances to win this game, it resides on the defensive side of the ball. And there's no reason not to be optimistic because look, this is a better defense than what Oklahoma had a year ago. And that Oklahoma defense held Texas to 23 points. And I've said it on this show. I think that Texas team last year was a better team than this Texas team. I think that Texas team is a better team than this Tennessee team. This is a really good Tennessee team, but I think that Texas team was better than this Tennessee team. Remember, that's a Texas team that went into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama. Now, what happened last year has no bearing on what happens this year, but I do think this is a better defense that Oklahoma is rolling out onto the field on Saturday night to face the Tennessee Volunteers. And so that's where I find some confidence because, again, held Texas last year to 23 points. You're better this year. You're better on the interior than you were last year. You have a better edge group than you did last year. You have a better linebacker core, basically because it's more developed, right? You went into that Texas game with Kip Lewis kind of starting to really come into his own. Jaren Kanak was still getting a lot of snaps. You had seen maybe a little bit of Kobie McKinzie, but not a lot. Sam Omasigo and Lewis Carter really hadn't factored in just yet. But now you're seeing all these blue chip prospects getting significant snaps in your front seven. And it's starting to create the reality. It's starting to create the promise that Oklahoma's defense is going to be a Brent Venables defense. And so as much as the offense needs to step up and continue to find that upward trajectory, you can find a little bit of confidence, maybe a lot of confidence in what Oklahoma's defense is doing right now. They're playing really, really good football. And if they can continue to play really good football and they can continue to stop the run, if they can find that consistent pass rush, if they can continue to play sticky coverage outside, it's going to make life challenging for Nico. But Nico's not going to be the biggest threat. He's going to be a threat. It's going to be a big challenge for the Oklahoma Sooners. He's a really talented quarterback, but the biggest threat that Oklahoma faces is somewhere else in the offense. We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Hey, Sooner fans, have you heard about ROY? It stands for Return on You, and it's a new platform that lets you, the fans, get involved in NIL like never before by making contributions directly to your favorite athletes. By supporting players directly, you can help shape rosters, retain talent, and keep your favorite athletes out of the transfer portal. As you all know, NIL has changed the game for athletes. ROY changes the NIL game for fans. ROY allows fans to directly back their favorite college athletes. With ROY, fans can play a key role in shaping the future of their favorite teams, while athletes maximize their name, image, and likeness. And there are no risk contributions. Fan contributions are securely held and are only distributed if the athlete makes the decision that aligns with the fan support. If not, the money is returned to the fan. So go download ROY for iOS or Android and enter referral code locked on, all caps, and you'll automatically be entered in a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. Visit joinroy.com for additional details. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Get the ROY app for iOS or Android and start making an impact on your favorite team. Use referral code locked on for an opportunity to win $5,000 cash. Visit roy.com for more details. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Get off the sidelines and into the NIL game with ROY. So we've talked about Oklahoma's defense and why it's important to, or you can have a little bit of confidence in Oklahoma's defense. You can be confident in where they're headed and what they're capable of. And against a good Tennessee offense, hey, Oklahoma's got a great defense. I know that they've given up some points, they've given up some touchdowns, they've had some lulls at times, but by and large, I mean, aside from a drive here and a drive there against Houston and Tulane, this defense has played really, really good football. Just think about the way that they ended the game after they allowed the opening half touchdown against Tulane. Shut them down. Absolutely shut them down at that point. So what is Oklahoma facing though this week? The biggest threat isn't Nico Iamaleava. He's a really good quarterback. He's a 5-star player. There's a reason why he's a 5-star player, and he's going to be an impactful player in this game. Don't mistake my words one bit, Tennessee fans. Don't mistake my words one bit, Sooner fans. Nico will be a threat in this game. But the biggest threat that Oklahoma faces comes in the rushing attack, and that is led by Dylan Sampson. Very, very talented runner, a guy that is really capable of hitting home runs. He's very capable of creating big chunk plays, even if he's not hitting a home run and he's able to scratch out 7, 8, 9, 10 yards a carry. That's going to be a tough test against a really good offensive line. Brent Venables highlighted it in his weekly press conference. He said it's one of the best offensive lines he's seen on tape. With Lance Hurd at tackle, again, a guy that Oklahoma went after and weren't able to land. This is going to be a big challenge for Oklahoma's defensive front and the linebacker crew to be able to contain the running game and to slow it down, again, to put Nico into some longer down and distances. But let's just look at Dylan Sampson's stats just real quick. He's tied for 6th in the nation in 10-plus yard runs. That's really good. He's 5th in the nation, tied for 5th in the nation in first down runs. That's really good. He's carried the ball 45 times for 357 yards and 9 touchdowns, averaging 7.9 yards per attempt. That's really stinking good. Meaning every time that he touches the ball, he's going to get Tennessee on average 8 yards. Can we get that, please? Like, I'd take half that. If Oklahoma could average 4 yards per attempt, I'd feel pretty good. We're not doing that right now outside of Jackson Arnold's running game. Deshaun Bishop, backup runner, is averaging 10.1 yards per carry. 222 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Peyton Lewis, he's averaging 6.9 yards per carry, 118 rushing yards. That's mighty impactful. And Josh Heupel's done a great job at making the game easy for Nico Iamaleava. He hasn't overextended his young 5-star quarterback. Obviously, he's given him a lot of opportunities to throw, and he's been very effective doing it. He's given him opportunities to run. He has over 100 yards rushing on the season. Tennessee has 4 guys with over 100 yards rushing on the season, led by Sampson's 357. And that's where the biggest challenge is going to be for Oklahoma. Because if Josh Heupel can just run the ball and run it consistently and never have to face a 3rd and long situation and never have to make Nico drop back, dude, that makes the game so much easier for a play caller. And so that's going to be the biggest threat to Oklahoma this week, is the running attack of the Tennessee Volunteers. And if they can't stop the run, it's going to be a really, really long night in Norman. But if they can be effective against the run, and again, this isn't, you got to hold them under 3 yards a carry. You got to hold them under 100 yards rushing total. No, you just have to, on first down, when they run the ball, you got to win some of those first downs. Meaning you got to hold them to less than 5 yards a carry on some of those first downs. If you can do that, that puts Tennessee in a 2nd and 6 or worse, 2nd and 7 or worse, and that gives you a better opportunity to win 2nd down. If you can win 1st and 2nd down and you put Tennessee in 3rd and 7 plus, I think you're going to have a really good opportunity to get off the field, because you're going to be able to pin your ears back a little bit more. You're going to be able to rush the passer with blitzes. You're going to be able to, play a little bit more man coverage on the backside. You're going to be able to get into your zones that you want to get into and force Nico to beat you. Again, he's capable of it. He's a very talented player, but where Tennessee's strength lies is in their rushing attack. The way that they beat Iowa in the bowl game last year was they just ground and pounded. And I mean, Nico was good when called upon, but they didn't ask him to do a whole lot. And I think that's going to be similar this week, as again, this is Nico Iamaleava's first true road start. They had the neutral site game in Charlotte against NC State, different environment than what he's going to face this week. Now, he's probably going to be up to the challenge. I'm not sitting here saying it's going to fluster him, it's going to, cause him to panic or anything like that, but it is going to be a challenging road environment. Just like Jackson Arnold will face next week in Jordan-Hare Stadium in Auburn. So if you can get into 3rd and long situations, you can get that crowd going, you can get in a situation where the defense is where they want to be, right? You want to be in 3rd and 7 plus, because then you're more than likely going to be getting a run or a pass play call. If that happens, then a guy like Armason Thomas, can he just focus on rushing the passer? He can use that speed to try and get around the edge and affect the passing attack. You can play more coverage, keeping everything in front of you and running and tackling. They have a really good wide receiver group, but still you have a really, really good tackling defense. So, if they try to throw it short and pick up yards after catch, I like where Oklahoma's opportunities to get off the field come on that front. But it all starts with stopping the run. As much as the game of football has evolved, it still comes back to stopping the run, playing good defense. And if Oklahoma can stop the run this week and even just slow down the run, say limit Dylan Sampson to 4 yards per carry, 5 yards per carry. Easier said than done, no doubt. That's going to be a tough task. But if they can do that and they can put more of the weight of the game on Iamaleava's shoulders, that's going to put Oklahoma in a better chance to secure victory. Will they secure victory? What other keys to the game are there? We'll continue to break those down as the week goes along. Jay will be back. He's traveling for work this week, so he's got different appointments and different meetings he's having to attend to, but he will be back for our Thursday show and Friday show as we continue to get you ready for Oklahoma versus Tennessee in Norman on Saturday night. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. I know that Sooner Nation is going to be geeked out for the College Game Day crew to be there. We're getting the A-team from ESPN as well for the broadcast with Kirk Herbstreit on the call. So it's going to be so much fun to watch that one. I can't wait, man. This right here is why Oklahoma is in the SEC. It's a tough matchup. It's a challenging opponent, a really, really good opponent. If I haven't said that enough on this show, I'm sorry, but Tennessee is really, really, really good. But it's the top 15 matchup. It's all the storylines that go into the game. It's all the people that are going to be on hand for the game that makes this so exciting, so fun. It's going to be a great college football atmosphere. And again, I know Sooner Nation is going to show up into the stadium. They're going to show out and they're going to make that crowd as loud as stinking possible for Tennessee to have to deal with. But that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports, myself at John 9 Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of the social media profiles. And we cannot wait to continue to break this game down with you. So make sure you're tuned in every single day. And for your second listen, go check out the Locked On College Football podcast with our guy, Spencer McLaughlin. From NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors, he gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. Find Locked On College Football on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. But until next time, I'm John Williams, Boomer Sooner.